Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring an absolutely fascinating historical transformation. We're looking at a man who literally helped build one of the most powerful and respected civilizations in human history.
Just think about this for a second. What if one of Islam's absolute greatest enemies became one of its greatest heroes? It sounds like something straight out of a movie, right? But this actually happened. We're talking about a massive, unbelievable shift. A man who went from being completely feared throughout Arabia for his sheer determination to crush early Islam to becoming one of its most universally beloved leaders.
His name was Umar ibn Al-Khattab, and he became known for absolute justice, deep humility, and just this unwavering faith. He wasn't just a background player in history, he was a foundational architect who really shaped Islamic civilization into what it became.
Section 1. Early life and the fierce opponent.
So to really understand the hero, we first have to look at who he was before this massive transformation. Born around 584 CE in Makkah, Omar belonged to the incredibly powerful Quraysh tribe. And physically and intellectually, the guy was formidable. At first, he strongly opposed Prophet Muhammad. Like a lot of the Quraysh leaders at the time, he genuinely believed this new message of Islam threatened the deeply rooted traditions of their society.
And this opposition wasn't just, a mild disagreement. It was intense. Omar's hostility reached such a boiling point that he actually set out, sword in hand, with the explicit intention of confronting the Prophet directly. You could almost feel the tension in Makkah. A deadly clash seemed completely inevitable. But history was about to take a miraculous turn.
Moving on to Section 2, a miraculous transformation.
This brings us to such a dramatic turning point. On his way to that confrontation, Umar finds out that his own sister and her husband have actually accepted Islam. He storms into their house, completely furious. But then, he hears them reciting verses from the Quran. And suddenly, all that anger just kind of melts away. The message completely touched his soul, and the truth became undeniably clear to him. He drops his anger right then and there, goes straight to the Prophet, and embraces Islam.
His open declaration of faith literally changed everything overnight. See, before this, a lot of Muslims were practicing in secret because the persecution was so severe. Umar's courage injected this immediate, powerful wave of confidence and protection into the community. Because of his immense strength and determination, Muslims were suddenly no longer afraid to worship openly. It was a total game changer.
Section 3, becoming the Caliph. So, let's look at how the leadership shifted. Chronologically, we have his birth in 584 CE. Then, 632 CE marks the incredibly devastating passing of Prophet Muhammad. Overwhelmed with grief, Umar stepped up to support Abu Bakr as the first caliph. And eventually, after Abu Bakr's passing, Umar himself succeeded as the second caliph, leading up to his final days in 644 CE.
Stepping into that role meant the leadership of the entire Muslim world rested entirely on his shoulders. That is a massive, massive responsibility. But despite the enormous weight of the position, Umar remained profoundly devoted to serving the people with just incredible humility.
That brings us to Section 4, the architect of justice.
This period really defined his rule, and you see this amazing duality in his character. On one hand, he's the ruler of a vast, rapidly expanding empire. But on the other hand, he lives so modestly that he's out patrolling the streets at night just to check on everyday people. There's this famous story where he finds a poor mother struggling to feed her kids, and instead of, ordering someone else to help, he personally hoists a heavy sack of food onto his own back and delivers it to them. I mean, that is the very definition of servant leadership.
Now, during this time, Muslim armies were achieving huge victories and expanding the state's territory at rapid speed. But honestly, his true triumph wasn't just military. It was how he transformed the state into a model of organized governance. He set up courts of justice, widespread public services, administrative systems, and crucially, he ensured the good, fair treatment of non-Muslims. He literally improved millions of lives through pure structural fairness.
Section 5, humility and character. So how do you handle that kind of immense power without letting it corrupt you? Well, Umar believed that leadership was a trust from Allah, and he took that literally. He wore simple clothes, avoided any kind of luxury, and never, ever considered himself above the people. He earned the deep respect of not just his followers, but even his fiercest opponents, just through his sheer honesty, his strict fairness, and his constant consciousness of Allah.
Section 6, the final days.
In the year 644 CE, tragedy struck.
Umar was severely wounded in an attack while he was leading the early morning Fajr prayer. But even in his final moments, bleeding and knowing his time was up, he wasn't thinking about himself. His only focus was advising the Muslims to remain united and faithful to the teachings of Islam. Soon after, he passed away, and it was heavily mourned across the entire Muslim world.
Yet, over 1,400 years later, his legacy absolutely lives on. The fierce opponent who turned into Islam's strongest defender continues to inspire millions of people globally even today.
Section 7. An enduring legacy. His journey from the streets of Makkah to the helm of a vast empire is just nothing short of breathtaking. It really shows how one person, guided by faith and integrity, can quite literally change the course of history. Throughout this explainer, we've seen how an absolute commitment to truth and righteousness can fundamentally alter the world, transforming societies for generations.
I want to leave you with this final, powerful thought. True leadership is not about power. It is about responsibility, fairness, and devotion to Allah. When you look at leaders in the world today, or even how you lead in your own life, you have to ask yourself, are you leading for power, or are you leading with responsibility? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning what true leadership really looks like.